to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
You can't fix yourself by breaking someone else.
And Dale Hummel.
The Republicans defunded the police.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, I have so many current events this week. Let's skip question and answer.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to allow that, but I'm fine with skipping question and answer for the rest of my life.
We have so many questions and answers that came in, and some of them are kind of they're out there. There's some people that want some answers. And you are the person to give it to them.
I do not think so. I'm still trying to figure out what happened to me last week, but I've survived Miss Texas. It was a wonderful experience, and now I'm judging in Ohio for this week, and then Virginia, and then Indiana, and then I'm home for like 48 hours, and I'm gone for 31 more days.
I am moderately concerned that you're not back to normal just yet.
Well, I'm trying the best I can, Dale.
I think by next week we'll be okay. Are you getting through the shows? Or are you surviving them?
I was good. Like, the hog show last night was just a little warm, but other than it being a little warm, and the grand champion hog exhibitor almost like tackled me and took me to the ground. He was so happy he won the show. But other than that, everything has been fine. We have sheep today and cattle ending up on Thursday, and then I go to Virginia for a lamb and goat show. So, and then I'm just trying to look a couple days ahead.
That is excellent. That is all good.
Yeah, it's great. So, but I do before you get into your whatever rants that we all know that you're going to rant about.
They're coming today. They're going to be strong.
First, I have two main things, and I touched on this last night in the Grand Hog Drive. So this Gwen Berry bitch, she needs to rot in hell.
She is on my list of things to address today. She does.
And that's just all there is to it. She needs to rot in hell. And
I wasn't going to go much further than that with it, other than the White House comes out and basically backs her, saying that, well, sometimes our country doesn't do the right things.
I was getting to that. And for those of you who don't know who Gwen Berry is, she is a hammer thrower that finished third in what I'm assuming are the Olympic trials to go to the Olympics.
That would be accurate.
When this bitch gets on the podium for third and they're playing the national anthem, she turns her back
and covers her head with a athlete activist t-shirt.
Right. So here's my thing. If you hate this country and its flag and its national anthem so much, then why do you want to represent the United States at the Olympics?
I don't know. I'm confused. I assume it's all about trying to bring attention to what they assume their cause is. Maybe she's doing it for financial reasons that Nike and a few of the other woke Coca-Cola companies will get behind her.
I do not know, but I swear to you, if they send this woman to the Olympics, I am going to have a major meltdown.
What happens in showmanship today when one of is it sheep today that you're sorting?
Yes, sheep.
What about when your sheep showman comes in with Nike gear and a Coca-Cola in their hand?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but so last night at the pig show, there wasn't a flag, but this kid sang the national anthem, and he did this amazing job. And like we all stood there with hands over hearts and all this stuff. And I talked about this, and I said, this is why we raise our children in a show barn, in a show ring, because we will never have kids that do stupid shit like this Gwen Berry woman. And the fact that the Biden administration, although they did not, I think they basically condoned it. I'm not sure. They said it was fine. They did not say that it was wrong and she should rot in hell, which is what they should have done. And I promise you, if Trump was still president, he would have said it was wrong and she needed to rot in hell.
Exactly. And you're speaking of the national anthem before the shows. I've been very fortunate, Ryan. Almost every show that I've sorted lately, every one of them has played the national anthem at these jackpot shows. And I hope they're doing it for whatever reason. But if you are running a show out there and you're listening right now, please implement that. There is so much good to come from exactly what Ryan's talking about, raising these kids in the barn and our stock show industry. And that's a part of it. Let's make that a part of every show if at all possible. We don't have to have somebody singing it. You can put it up to your phone, as Ryan had mentioned in an earlier podcast. Let's just do it in some manner. When they did that in the show I just sorted last week in California before each show, I can't explain it. And Ryan, you can probably explain it better than I. To me, it puts me in a better frame of mind. I think it's appropriate, and it puts everybody in the right frame of mind to start that day, start that show.
No, I just don't think there's any better way to do it. I'm also very upset now because I got so worked up over Gwen Wary, I have broken a nail. This is not good.
What are you going to do? How are you going to get through the Lamb Show with a broken nail?
I don't know. This is not good because I don't go home till next week, and I don't know. This is bad. Next on my rants, and then I will be done. So, your lovely president, I would rather walk on my lips than talk about somebody, but Joe Biden, he held a press conference at some point during Miss Texas week.
That you missed. Totally missed.
I did miss it. I did. I missed everything. If it was during Miss Texas, you called, you text, you sent a smoke signal. I just didn't get it. It just didn't happen. It was a lot. I could do a whole nother podcast on the aftermath of Miss Texas and actually what happened, but we don't have time for that. This man, while taking questions from reporters in the White House press pool, he leans over and bends down into the microphone and starts whispering his answers like some adolescent child. He has done some creepy stuff.
No, this was the most creepy.
The sniffing people to the talking about kids rubbing on his hairy legs when he was a lifeguard. I mean, Joe has been creepy. This was the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It bothered me. And I don't know. I can't explain why. It just...
until you've watched it, you just don't know how creepy it is. So for those of you that think that I am more insane than usual, which could be, go Google Creepy Joe whispering press conference and watch this insane idiot that is running our country.
It's off the charts. I don't know how the media doesn't unload on him. I don't know how he's still our president.
There is no rational explanation for that type of behavior other than you have lost what's left of the rest of your mind.
Agreed.
That's simple. It. And
So I'm at a crossroads trying to decide if he's truly lost everything, which I believe that to be the case, or if some of these plans he's putting in place and executive orders are intentional to benefit the Democrat Party in future elections. I maybe some of both. One day I'm convinced he's that incoherent and doesn't understand what's going on, and he truly believes these things are for the better. When he signs the executive order to change the policies that Trump put in place to get the border under control, and we can see what a complete and total disaster it is, yet he stands behind those policies. Ryan, is that being his cognitive skills are gone, his ability to think logically, is that gone, or is this intentional? I don't know.
I can't even fathom any of trying to figure this out. And I have stated this before, and I'm going to state this again. And people do not like this. I am truly now more than ever, the more that I watch him, the more he does weird shit like this. Like yesterday, they were asking him about his trip to Europe. And it's like, oh, it was a very long 13 days. He was there 8.
That is a problem.
Anyhow, I don't know if they're going to try to remove him, but y'all, we are barely 6 months into this.
No, and it's a mess.
And we're supposed to go 4 years. I think Kamala Harris would do a better job because at least she would be worried about getting reelected.
I mean, I think she's already worried about that, how she's avoiding a lot of things that could be used against her. And back to Creepy Joe, and creepy is the best way to describing people. I don't mean to associate and call names, but I don't know how else to do it with this man. I understand someone at his age forgetting things and having some memory issues. That's perfectly normal. That just happens. But they do not need to be the president of the free world.
And I don't know if I ever said this on the podcast before, but when it got down that Biden was the Democratic nominee, Like, you were not voting for Joe Biden. You were voting against Trump if you voted for Biden. There was no reason, no logical, rational, sane reason to say, I'm going to cast my vote for this man. You were simply voting against Trump, which is fine. I mean, that happens in a lot of elections throughout whatever. They're not voting for the other person. They're voting against someone. I get that. I don't agree with voting against Trump, but I get what they did.
Agreed.
Now that they have seen this, I hope they are having some buyer's remorse, and I hope that they're like, okay, so yeah, we really were stupid.
I hope it's happening. I don't know that it is. And when I watch,
well, no one's praising him.
Oh, I don't know. They're not tearing him up like they should.
Dale, there is a difference in not ripping him to shreds like they did Trump, but they're also not saying he's done anything right. That tells more to me than anything else.
Up until recently, the liberal media was praising him. Maybe not this month, but prior to that, up until June, they were. And I think you probably still have some that are. I have another example to bring out on this administration and Mr. Biden. We're going to talk about the New Deal, the Green New Deal. And it's still on the radar. And I wanted to bring out something that a good friend of mine had sent me some statistics, Ryan. It's amazing to me. They're piling up on a lot of our coal-fired power plants is causing most of the carbon emissions on the planet. So with this being said, if you look at the coal-fired plants across the world, in the European Union, there are 468 with 27 more being built currently. Japan has 90, currently building 45 more. China has 2,363, currently building over 1,000 more as we speak. So we've got an excess, almost 6,000 in just 8 countries. Do you want to know how many coal-fired plants the United States has?
I'm sure you know.
I do. I have it right in front of me. 15. And the Democrats, with their Green New Deal, want to brainwash us and say we need to shut down these 15 plants. This makes a point that whatever the U.S. does doesn't make a difference regarding CO2 emissions. The rest of the world, particularly China and India, are going to have a bigger impact on that than everybody else put together. We have zero impact, yet we're still pushing this Green New Deal. We're pushing all this electric. Where do they believe we're going to get the electricity from? Where does it just show up? I'm confused.
Well, Trump had a rally in Ohio somewhere. Of course, I'm in Ohio and I couldn't go. But anyway, and he said that by the end of the month, we'll have lost all of our energy independence and we will be buying from Russia.
Again. That is frightening. Absolutely frightening. And how can there's no way that the White House or his advisors can't see the issues here. But what is the reason? What is the reason they would do this? I just don't understand.
Beyond me, I don't know.
What about the new position that the White House has taken? Creepy Joe talking about the Republicans are the ones responsible for defunding the police. How do you like that?
Sweet Jesus, that is the biggest bunch of BS. Oh my God!
Yet they're putting it out there. Can anybody possibly buy into that?
Circle Back America was doubled down on it. I really. Oh,
it's amazing.
Republicans are the reason that the police are being defunded because not one Republican voted for some bill.
And or one of the COVID bills that mentioned nothing about the police budget or anything. Now it was money to states that assumably could do what they want, but those Democratic members of the city council and the mayors on all the cities that we're seeing this increased crime and specifically murder rate, all of them voted to defund. So there was none of that money going to go that direction anyway. Period. End of story. It's that simple. It just amazes me. Absolutely amazes me.
They just make stuff up at random, and I don't know how. I mean, I guess they believe it. I
don't know. Maybe you and I are more politically aware now than we've ever been, and maybe it's been this bad forever. But I don't think so. I really don't think it's been. No,
I don't remember people just making shit up.
Well, talking about making shit up. What about just ignoring things? Let's go into our 6,000 deaths from COVID in the United States. We can argue whether COVID is bad or good or how serious we should take it, but it appears, and the numbers aren't correct, there's people that have lost their life from it. No question, it's a large number. Yet the Democrats refuse to hold even a hearing to try to get the ball rolling on determining how this all began, whether or not this was truly through nature, or it was a leak from a lab, or the Chinese actually released it intentionally. And then you've got the kingpin of them all, Dr. Fauci, and what is he hiding? Maybe the fact that the Wuhan lab is nothing less than a bioweapon research facility. Maybe the fact that it was funded by the NIH, and this NIH organization is funded by U.S. tax dollars that are overseen by Dr. Fauci. It's amazing to me. We have one thing that you can't not argue. The specific DNA code / footprint that is in COVID-19 is commonly used in gain-to-function research and is yet to be located in nature. They have not been able to find this exact sequence in nature. There are so many things that point in the direction of this at the very least being a lab leak. And there's no question that we were a part of funding this gain-to-function research and basically bioweaponry in China. And it makes zero sense. Trump tried to stop it. I don't know. I don't know how it continued. I'm not sure. The Chinese researchers even requested the NIH delete the sequences that they had on file here, and there's only one reason to do that. They're covering up things. China has done so many things. They've left just very little evidence that we can go and look at this point that will determine whether it was a leak, whether it was intentionally released, or maybe from nature. But the simple fact is they've spent so much effort and put so much time into destroying files, to deleting everything they can possibly delete, to shutting down the press, to scientists disappearing. That should speak volumes enough that there is a huge problem here. There is no question that China covered all this up. They were restricting travel from the Wuhan province or that area throughout China, but allowing them to travel internationally. There are dozens of examples that I can point to that they knew a lot more than they were letting out. And I'm still not convinced that they didn't release it on their own. I don't have the facts, but I tell you what, if I evaluate all the evidence that's left behind and the huge factor that they've destroyed and tried to delete everything there is only one conclusion that I can come to, that I can say I feel more confident, either a leak or intentionally released. There is no question in my mind, and I feel very strongly, this began in the Wuhan lab, period. I cannot tell you if it was released or leaked out, but I can tell you either way, China could have done things much differently to warn the world and to try to benefit, allow those to benefit with some warning and some heads up on what's going on. Think about where Trump had China, what position China was in since he took office. He redid the trade deals. He made them much more fair. He had them in a position where they were climbing before he came in to be the world leader. He broke that up. He made things on a more even playing field so we can compete. China was going backwards, and they were going backwards very quickly. Ryan, do you think it was in China's best interest for Trump to not get reelected?
Duh.
Yeah. And with that said, there are so many things that China has benefited from this virus, bringing the rest of the world down to their level. It's almost impossible in my mind that they don't feel that Chinese Communist Party, not the people of China, the Chinese Communist Party has to feel pretty good about where they're at right now, especially with Sleepy Creepy Joe in the White House and going to allow things to happen. And it frustrates me. And that's putting it very, very mildly. But I wish so that the Republicans hold a hearing on it. No Dr. Fauci, no Democrats whatsoever. 6,000 lives in the U.S. and how many worldwide? And the Democrats don't want to find out how this happened or how to stop it from happening in the future. That is absurd. That's as absurd as anything we've talked about, Ryan.
There's just so much that is whacked right now. It's unbelievable.
Have you heard about the Delta variant?
What?
The COVID Delta variant.
Uh-huh.
They discovered it in India. It is now doubling in the U.S. every day. It has completely shut Australia, the United Kingdom, and Thailand, as well as South Africa, pretty much back down under lockdown. I did a lot of research on it, Ryan, and there are going to be continued modifications and variants of the COVID virus or COVID-19. This one appears to be more contagious. I think everybody can agree upon that. But at the same time, you have to realize that when I look at the research, there's some of it that says this is going to be nothing more than a little more of a severe cold, not even to flu-like symptoms. And then others are out there screaming that this is going to be twice as deadly as what COVID-19 was. I spent a couple hours researching it, and it's impossible to know exactly what it is. I'm leaning towards the fact that if we have a disease that is very, very contagious, more times than not, the more contagious it is, the less lethal it is. If it's lethal, it tends to die with that person or that animal or whatever it is, and consequently doesn't maybe pass on to the next. But I am under the opinion that it's probably not as serious as the original strain. Los Angeles is strongly recommending masking back up indoors. I hope we don't see this. There's a chance, and they're trying to put fear into us to get the vaccinations given. And I don't care whether a person gets a vaccine or not. That is completely their choice. I wish there was more honest information out there about the good and the bad of vaccines that people could research on their own rather than listening to the media. So I don't have a position either way whether a person should or should not get vaccinated, but they are putting the fear out there that if you're not vaccinated, this Delta variant is probably going to hit you, and we're going to have pockets in the U.S. spike where we're going to have to lock back down again. So with that said, it is convenient for the government to push this as being maybe a little bit more lethal or more of a problem than maybe what it is, because there's no question they're pushing, let's vaccinate, let's vaccinate, let's vaccinate. So it makes me question just where we're at.
See, I think they have a real big problem on their hands. I don't think people are going to go back to lockdown.
I don't either. I can't see it happening. It just doesn't, I don't feel it, period.
And the reason why I say that is when we did the lockdown, none of it worked.
No, none of it worked. We did nothing but prolong.
600,000 people still died. All this other, none of it worked.
If we could have locked down for 2 weeks and had a solution, maybe, but that didn't happen. That isn't realistic.
And again, it wouldn't matter if it was Trump or Biden or Clinton or whoever would have been in the deal. Nobody knew what to do, whatever, but it didn't work. So I just do not there is this thing called the will of the people. And I honestly believe that whether it's a new strain or whatever else, I think, 10 years from now, if there's another something, I think it is going to be very, very difficult to get people to obey lockdown type situations after this ever again.
I hope that is the case, and I hope they simply think for themselves and make that personal choice. So we can hope. Before we exit current events, I do have one update, Ryan. One last update. UFO update.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
So the U.S. government released some more information, and they came out and basically stated, and remember, we're in the middle of summer. There's a lot of reasons to release this information now. It used to be, we couldn't talk about it because the whole country's going to go into panic mode, that UFOs are going to take over and all this. I have no idea where all this plays into things. But what I can tell you is there's documented cases of nearly 200 specific sightings by our own military that the U.S. government cannot explain, period. They cannot explain what these are at all. Nearly 200 cases. And this is not just random you or I sending something into the Pentagon or to the government, say, hey, here's a UFO. This is our military documenting these cases. With that said, does this not seem a little bit questionable?
I am going to state again.
You're not answering the question.
I believe there is another form of life being out there, all this other stuff. And maybe they're running around in spaceships and whatever. I don't know. But I don't know what more you want from me.
Maybe. Well, look at there's an absolute consensus that the Russians, at this point, when they evaluate these documented cases, they say that there is no chance that the Russians or the Chinese or even ourselves could develop this technology. Under that scenario, what's left?
I have never, ever stated that I do not believe that there is another form of intelligent life out there. I do, but I don't have any answers for the rest of this.
I would like an answer. I
Well, I
want
don't
you to
have
tell us
any.
what this is. Maybe
And since you're the one that's so obsessed with aliens and UFOs and all this other stuff, why do you keep asking me when you think you're the expert?
I would just like to know the truth. I would like to have all the evidence so you can form your own opinion. I don't know if I guess at this point, because I can't come up with another viable option. I'm assuming as such. And if I go back through history, there appears in my evaluation of history to be evidence that there was some help given to certain civilizations to achieve what they achieved. Maybe I'm not giving those civilizations enough credit, as my youngest son would tell me. But it would just be good to know whether or not this is happening. Again, if they are aliens, I believe they've been here for a very long time. And there's no reason to think that they're going to do any harm at this point until we do something stupid, which is possible. But it was interesting to me. At least the U.S. government is now acknowledging it. They're talking about it as a national security issue. I have no idea whether it is a true alien or not, but I can't come up with anything else. So with that said, it's easy to say no, it's not alien, but I would like an answer. What is it? I'm glad it's not the Russians, and I'm glad it's not Chinese. One other thing, they're blocking ivermectin as a treatment for COVID. It appears as though there's more and more research, Ryan, coming out on ivermectin being used in our stock show community. I think a lot of people actually put some ivermectin. I did for a long period of time. But now in any social media, if you use the word ivermectin, you're probably going to get blocked. Gone. Maybe that's why they hate me so much. I must have put ivermectin in my Facebook post somewhere.
I think they hated you long before COVID, but that's just me.
And I don't know why. I am not a fan of Facebook. I never will be. It's a necessary evil at this moment from an advertising standpoint and getting messages out to the world. But someday Trump is going to have his platform and life is going to be better.
Next.
Are you ready for the main topic?
Yes, since it's my topic.
It's good. Really good. Just because they ask does not mean you should say yes. And if you say yes, show up.
This
Ryan,
is about judges, people.
Explain it, Ryan. Just explain it.
This has come up a lot. This is not anything new. This is just over the years and the decades and whatever. And so, I do believe that it does not matter how many shows you have judged, how few shows you have judged, how vastly intelligent you are, accomplished. There are times that every single one of us who has been asked to judge a show, who will be asked to judge a show, etc., there are times when you need to say no. And I can give you an example of a very recent time that I have said no, but I do not believe, for the most part, that people think about this and actually do the right thing and say no.
I think there's people saying no, but it's more from a scheduling situation. Whether
but that's not what I'm talking about.
That's what I wanted to clarify. There are people saying no to shows, but not for these reasons you're bringing up.
That's not what I'm talking about. Because it doesn't fit in your schedule is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that you may be great at judging one species, but you also may not be worth a damn at judging another. And yet, people don't say, you know what? I'm very comfortable judging pigs. I'm not comfortable judging sheep and goats. So you're asking me to do everything at this jackpot show or at this county fair. Probably shouldn't do that. I don't think people tell them that.
I don't think so. And I think they're depending on the size of the show. If we're talking at half a dozen goats and 3 sheep at a county fair, maybe it works, especially from their budgeting standpoint. But I don't think that's what you're talking about.
There's really big shows that this happens at. I'm just saying. But
agreed. I think there's various reasons to say no, and you can bring up.
I'm just using that as the first example. There again. I know a lot of times, because county fairs are on limited budgets and all this other stuff, that they might ask someone in an adjacent county or close by. And if you know a great deal of those exhibitors, and you are not someone that judges a whole lot and been faced in those situations several times throughout your judging career, and you're prepared to handle that, you don't need to say yes.
Seems pretty simple.
Do you think they say no?
I don't know, but you know that it happens. I guess it appears to happen more times than not. When I'm visiting with a family and they say their county fair is coming up, I will usually ask who's judging, and it's a lot of times the answer is such and such that I've never heard of. And I said, well, where are they from? And they said, oh, they're from the neighboring county or this part of the state. And I don't know if it's as much budget, Ryan. Sometimes I think the people that are hiring at that level maybe are put in a position where they're not as knowledgeable, and they're just hiring anybody that they can find, or their buddies that may be in the livestock. I think there's just various reasons that it happens.
And I have talked about this before, and this will make Dale cringe because he's the new Mr. Angus America with his little Argentina vampire Angus people, but whatever, I'm going to say it again. To the breed people out there are people that are capable of sorting your breed, even that do not raise them. I know this is a hard thing for some breeds.
Now, this would not just be the Angus breed. This would be all breeds, correct?
I said all breeds.
Oh, okay, got it.
Angus are one of the worst abusers of it. I'm just going to be real honest. But there are other people that don't raise animals of that breed that are more than capable.
Are you alluding to somebody that doesn't raise that breed, maybe not having as many?
They don't make their money off selling those animals of that breed. They haven't been in that breed for I don't know however long, and know everybody. Yeah, that might make things a little easier.
That's what you're getting at. Are you saying when you go to a show and you know not a single kid at that show, that it's just simple, it's easy?
I have not known one kid at this county fair, and it's fine. I mean, it
works way better.
It is what it is. And like, again, I've talked about how the subconscious affects judging and stuff like that, but do you think that there has ever been one of these prominent breeders that have been asked to judge their breed and they said, I don't know. Not many.
I'm going to say yes, they have. I don't know how many.
I'm saying that I didn't say there was none, but I'm just saying not many.
Agreed. It is difficult.
There are lots of various reasons that just because they ask you to judge a show does not mean you need to say yes. And I am going to give an example. I have been asked repeatedly for the last 3 years to judge the Mini Hereford Junior National. The first 2 years, there was a scheduling problem. I was already booked, so I didn't have to say yes or no. They asked me just here recently, and I have told them no. And I explained the situation. One of my best male friends' child shows Mini Herefords. He's on my judging team. That family is integral in my life. All these things. I could go out there and I could sort that little girl and her cattle and put them exactly where they need to be. And I know that with everything in me. I personally don't think this family would show to me if I was announced as the judge. If they did show to me, they would be able to handle whatever place they got perfectly fine because they know me that well. The problem is everyone else. And that little girl only has a limited time in the Mini Hereford breed because once she's able to show big cows, she's not going to continue to show minis. And so she has a limited number of years to do this. And again, I am not the problem, or my ability to sort her is not the problem. The family is not the problem. It's going to be everybody else. And if this child has won more Mini Hereford shows than she ever lost. And so if she loses, it's because I beat them because I didn't want to seem political. If she wins, it's because I'm very close to that. There's no good that can come from this situation.
I think that's a great position for you to put yourself in. I think you need to do that.
Okay. Whatever.
Jump right in that one.
You just like to see me fail because it doesn't happen. But
you're absolutely right. There is no good solution there. Period.
There is no good to come from this situation.
No.
And I told this person that asked me, I said, please do not take this as the fact that I think I would have the greatest time with those little kids of anybody ever. I can't imagine a show that I would have a better time judging than the Mini Hereford Junior National with all these little children. I think it would be just a magical experience, and I want to do it. But when I get to do it, I don't want there to be any cloud hanging over it. I don't want any parent or any child that is attending that show to think anything other than, man, this was as good as it could be.
Nope, I think that's very wise.
I know when to say no, and there's not many. This probably would be the only situation other than a scheduling conflict that I would say no, but I did say no. And again, it has nothing to do with my ability to do it fairly and unbiasedly. I just don't see any good coming out of that situation if I were to say yes.
No, I agree, Ryan. And that brings in another example. And I've been in this position. I can remember last year getting a phone call from a family that we sold goats to. And they asked me if I was judging such and such show. And at the time, I don't know how I managed to do this, but I had a different one in my mind. I said, well, no, I actually wasn't able to do that. And so you should be fine to go. I had Iowa and Ohio confused in my head, kind of a Sleepy Joe moment. And I basically told them that, yeah, it's fine to go to the show. It was not their fault. They asked the correct one. I was confused in my mind which one that I had committed to sort. And when a family shows up at a show like that with one of ours, and I've judged other jackpots even this year that some of ours show up at, and you don't want to deny those kids from showing. But I can promise you when they do show up, and I'll be very open about this, I was harder on them and continue to be harder on them than I would if they weren't ours. And it's not fair to the kids, but I'm not sure that's trying to avoid that bad situation that you're talking about. It would be easier for me not to have judged the show. And I think in foresight, if I know that we have goats, no question going to be at that county or that jackpot or that state fair, there's not a chance I'm going to take it because you don't want to deprive that family from participating.
Well, and that is another thing. If you sell them, broker them, raise them, whatever, when they call and ask, if you think that there's a high probability something that you had a hand in could show up at that show, it's just better to say no. I don't know how many do.
No, that's very few, Ryan. Think about how many across species are judging these shows, and they've had their hand in it, and it's gotten to levels here recently that when you start connecting the dots, I think that average person out there showing...
I don't think people need to connect to the dots. They'd be scared if they do. Very scared. Mortified is what they would be.
It would shock and destroy our industry if they knew... if they connected all the dots, whether it be the goat ring, the sheep ring, it doesn't matter. But there's too much of this going on, and those people sorting those shows or hiring those that sort the shows, we've got to put a little more time and effort into who we're selecting to judge, because connect the dots, people. It's not always good.
And I know people are going to say, well, that sounds simple, that if you have a hand in something that you think, you don't say yes. But I can assure you, I see examples almost every single weekend that if you were in the know and you can connect the dots, where it's not as simple because they're not saying no.
No, not only they're not saying no, I think they're saying yes, and they're excited to do so. And this mafia is forming that is out of control.
I care a great deal about this industry, and I'm not pointing fingers at any single person. And maybe there aren't enough people. I don't know if people that actually sort shows listen to this podcast or not. I have no idea. But I do know that moms and dads of kids that shows and people that run shows listen to this podcast. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic up. I don't think that my opinion or talking about this is going to change the mind of anybody that gets asked to judge a show. Probably not. Because unless you've been in that position and got us, there is a great deal of a power trip involved in sorting a show. And there's no other better way to say that. It just is. You get a big ego boost because someone wants your opinion, then you're out there. You get to, for lack of a better term, play God for a few hours. I mean, all of those things. So it's a real hard thing to turn down. I mean, am I wrong there, Dale?
No, I think you're dead on, and it's, and again, maybe I'm just more aware of it now than I have been in the past, but I do not think that's the case. I think we have more associations being made, more coalitions being formed, that you're going to have to connect more and more dots, but it's forming, and it's forming it in a situation where it's discouraging. I love this industry more than anything. I've been involved in it my entire life, as has Ryan. And I am very nervous right now that if we don't bring this back into check, that when that average person that maybe isn't completely in the know right now, but is the bulk of our exhibitors that are exhibiting 90% of the livestock out there, when they become aware of some of these situations, they have no reason to go attend that show. If they busted their butt, they finally found that good animal, and they are going to that show and realistically have no chance of winning, that is where I draw the line, that we've gone way, way too far, and that we've got to bring this whole industry back into check. And again, this is being very negative in an industry that I'm going to continue to fight for, and I think has more good than we could ever imagine. But why allow these few situations or few people that are doing this to continue to do so? I do not think they're going to change, as Ryan mentioned, but I do believe we can educate those hiring at these shows to put a little more thought into it, maybe do a little more research, reach out to somebody that maybe is more so in the know to help guide you.
And, we're talking about this, and this goes back to exactly what I'm talking about when I turned down the Mini Hereford Junior National. If you are in a position that going in, that if somebody wins or loses, there's going to be talk about it in terms of the fact that, oh, well, they won because of so-and-so, or they only got beat because of so-and-so. That's probably not a good position for you to be put in, regardless. But think about that kid who, to no fault of them, they're the ones that are going to get talked about more than you. And regardless if it's a success or failure, if that child succeeds, and even if, and again, this little girl that I'm talking about in the Mini Hereford, she has won, she swept the Mini Hereford Junior Nationals this year. She has won far more than she lost. So if I would have used her to win, she probably would have deserved to win, without a doubt, because her animals are that good. People aren't going to talk about that. They're going to talk about a child and be angry and be upset and ruin a success for a child because you weren't man or woman enough to say, you know what? I don't need to do this, and I don't need to be in this situation, and I don't need to put my friend's kid or my acquaintance's kid or my coworker's kid or however, whatever it is, in that type of situation.
No, and I think that's very clear, very simple. I think that maybe we should take it a step further and go beyond that, Ryan, because I think more so than that, what about putting yourself in the situation that whether you're the show manager or the judge, and you pose this question to yourself, is there any way, directly or indirectly, that judge or myself is going to benefit from judging that show and making decisions during that day? Will it benefit that person financially? If the answer is yes, it's simple, isn't it, Ryan?
This sounds like such a dumb topic because it seems like common sense, but I really don't think it is.
But it's not. But it's not happening. People are. I can assure you, when we go out into our junior market livestock shows, not even going into all the breeding shows, just in the junior market shows alone, I can assure you, there's a lot of them that are sorting shows that are making decisions because they have either for various reasons, but it is going to affect their livelihood from a financial standpoint. And guess what? It's not easy to make a living in this industry as a breeder. And a lot of these people are under financial stress, and people make bad decisions that they normally would not make because of financial issues. That's maybe a little strong, but it's the truth.
We had an episode about politics in the show ring, and we talked about that and stuff like that. But like, and again, I think so much of this can be cleared up if the people hiring people and the people accepting positions just had a little more common sense.
And to help out here, those that are hiring, you've got a difficult job. It is a much more difficult job now than it ever has been. So I sympathize for you, and you're in a position that's challenging because everybody's wanting that perfect judge, and maybe there's not that many out there. But what I would like to ask is just do your best. Put a little more effort, put a little more thought. Ask more than one person. Go to 2 or 3 to make sure that your guidance is accurate and correct. And you can find out. You can find the answers if you reach out. Mm-hmm. So please take the time to do so. Your decisions impact so many, and you're in a position that I highly. It's not a good position to be in, and I respect the fact that that people out there are doing this on a regular basis. Let's just take it one step further and make it that much better.
No. And so that kind of does that. And I could go on and talk about that for a long time. But those are just kind of some of the big things. But now, and this isn't directly correlated, but if you say yes to judging a show, show up. And I get very upset about this because in the past, but before Miss Texas, before I got to Miss Texas, so in a week span before Miss Texas, 5 different shows contacted me asking me if I could come judge the show. Now, why they would think that I would be able to fit this in the summer that I'm having, I don't know, because 5 judges had bailed on them and the show was within a matter of weeks. Less than 30 days, I guess, is the best way to put that. I do not understand that. I don't get it. I don't understand it unless it is a medical emergency, a death, something like that. And those things happen. Things like that do happen, and I do understand that. So I don't want people to think that I'm heartless or whatever, because stuff like that happens and everybody understands it. I do not get being down to within a month and just be like, you know what? I'm not going to make it. Sorry.
Ryan, you're being kind when you say a month. I had 3 or 4 calls last week under the same scenario, and we're talking, and maybe I'm not being told the truth, but these superintendents were telling me they backed out a matter of days before. Without a recommendation, without a solution, just I can't make it.
When you say yes to doing these things, like, the process stops. No one has a backup judge. You know what I'm saying? It's not like there's a runner-up waiting in the wings if you are not there to fulfill your obligations. That's not how it works. And I have had to cancel shows before. I have. Not many. I guarantee you they could all be on one hand that I remember. Every time that I had to cancel a show, I have offered to come back and do that show the next year, whatever. And so I'm not saying that I have never canceled. I have. But it was advance warning. It wasn't within a month. I offered to give them names, suggestions, help them find a judge, all these other things. And people are just like taking these jobs and been like, not so much now. And what is more offensive to me than that?
Careful.
I'm trying.
There is no way to state this other than just go straight at it.
The ones that take these jobs and never intend on showing up and they're just going to send somebody instead. That makes my blood boil. Because they did not hire whoever you feel you need to send at the time because you're too precious to make it. They hired you. They asked you. You said yes. You said you would show up. And then when the time comes, I'm just going to send somebody. No. Now
don't get that confused with 30 days or more out and something comes up with you giving them suggestions. There's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes, you're right, Ryan, they just send somebody. And quite frankly, the superintendent has very few options. That they pretty much have to take it.
It just drives me insane. Like, how can you have such little respect for the situation that they asked you for your opinion and they wanted you to come sort the show? And you know what? I'm just going to send somebody. No, it does not work for me whatsoever at all. Anyhow,
I'm with you on that one. What about not only showing up, but taking it as a serious responsibility to be there and to do a good job?
I would like to say that I would think that that wouldn't have to be stated, but evidently
you would be wrong.
No, this is getting more evident that is something that has to be stated, and I don't know how we got to that point, but I think if you're gonna do this and you want to do this and you say yes and then you say yes and you show up, then why not just give it our all and show up and on time and not wearing the clothes you were out in last night or not reeking of booze or things like that. Like, just if you're gonna say yes and you're gonna show up, let's give it all we can. And I am sorry and I am sad that we are having to actually say this and suggest this, but you are right, Dill. There are more instances becoming apparent that is something that needs to be stated.
And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. And some people don't want to maybe put that much into it or take that much or feel that responsible to do everything you can to make it a good show and do your best. If you don't want to do that, then just don't take the show. I'm not saying that you have to take the show and you have to go do that. You have choices. If you're willing to put 100% into it, set whatever political issues aside that you can, show up on time, show up in a professional manner, have a professional attitude, and do the job that you're hired to do, that is fantastic. But if you're not willing to do those things, just don't.
I just think that this is so simple and logical and rational that we shouldn't have to dedicate a podcast to this. But I mean, I know we do, but I worry that we're at a point, kind of at a crossroads. And where for so many decades, there was this just etiquette of how you acted, what you did, all this other stuff when you were asked to judge a show. I don't care of what size, any size. And not saying that there weren't certain judges that didn't really follow the rules or the etiquette or whatever, but for the most part, for the large majority, everyone got it. Now, I don't think we're there as much. And I think we're at this crossroads that we can either take it back the way it needs to be, or there are going to be younger kids who are getting out of college, getting off judging teams, stuff like that are going to see some of the current examples right now. Hey, and if they can do it, then I can. And that leads us into a terrible, spiraling, downhill snowball. I can't even describe everything that could go wrong there.
And Ryan, that is exactly why you and I are talking about this today when we shouldn't really have to. And it's not about how it's going to affect you or I personally, but it's we're in a place in the world, in a crossroads in the world that we've got a lot of things going directions that concern me. But fortunately enough, time in the barn and time at the stock shows, we talk about the national anthem before the shows and the responsibilities and the work ethic. All of these things seem to be lost in some of our other segments of the population. And I don't want that to be lost from our stock show world. And because of that, we're going to throw it out there and talk about the things we're talking about. And I think Ryan's explanation was absolutely perfect. Maybe he and I are a little old school. Maybe we're old fashioned on how a judge should conduct themselves or should not. But let's just try. Let's try to do better.
No one is perfect. I am not perfect. No judge is perfect. Things are whatever. But like, don't put yourself in situations where no good can come of it. If you're going to say yes, then give your all.
That's simple.
There you go.
I think this was a good topic, Ryan.
I don't know.
May not be popular with some, may be real popular with I don't know.
Troy Gretzka, this was not real fluffy and cute and bunny rabbits and unicorns and all this other stuff. So you won't be real happy, Troy. But
I'm gonna get a Snapchat from Troy on this one, I'm sure.
I'm just saying. So yeah, there were no unicorns and butterflies in this nonsense, but I still believe that the intent of this podcast, when Dale told me he wanted to do it, is that we wanted to help the industry and we wanted to continue to make it improve. And this is something that needs to be addressed to make things improve.
And that is going to require talking about things that others don't want to discuss. And I guess we're going to continue to do that.
There you go.
With that said, I try not to filter many. So Ryan, I don't want you to blame question and answer on me. I simply take the questions that are submitted.
Right. Yeah.
Do we understand that? Are we on the same page here?
I also call bullshit, but next.
That is not accurate.
Okay, go ahead.
First question and answer comes from Nate. Hi, guys. I'm judging a couple county fairs for the first time this summer, and I'm honored to be able to do it. My question is, how do I get the opportunity to move up to the next level to judge jackpot shows? Kind of fits in our topic, doesn't it?
And I get asked this all the time, and this kind of brings up something that I don't know how to address it exactly or not, but I get asked advice a lot about how to judge more shows, how to judge bigger shows, all this other stuff. And I don't want anyone to think that I am being rude or don't want to help people and don't want everybody to fulfill their, stock sorting goals and ambitions and dreams. But what worked for me is just not going to work for anybody else. And I can't sum that up or make that any clearer. It's just not. If I think the best thing that you can do to get more shows and bigger shows is say yes to all of them that you can, that is not going to put you in a bad situation. And just exactly what I said, go out there and give 155% of yourself in that arena. And people think that I am being stupid and fooling people full of BS when I say this. I don't care if the show is 30 head, 300 head, 3,000 head. It doesn't matter to me. If you, when you leave that show, are not mentally drained to some point, then you didn't give it enough, in my honest opinion. And I'm not talking about physically being tired. There are some shows when you judge 800 head of hogs in one day, you're going to be physically tired. But there needs to be some part of you mentally that, regardless of how big the show was, that you're like, oh, glad that part is over. Because that's the part that needs to be wore out, is your brain. Because if it didn't matter to you, then you didn't think about it. And again, I'm not saying that correctly, but that's the thing. Just go and give 100% or more of yourself to every single one of those kids. And if you were honest in your alignment and you're as accurate as you can be in terms of describing reasons, I think you will get more jobs and you'll continue to get bigger shows. And that's the thing. But again, when people ask me, I don't want people to think that I'm hiding something or trying to hold people back. I just know how I did this and how I went about this and how I have got to where I am. And I still want to go a lot further. I'm going to be real honest. I'm not done. I hope I'm not done. I want to go further. The way I went about it's not going to work for anybody else.
Ryan, excellent answer for Nate there. And Nate, I can kind of sum up and maybe condense down. I think Ryan answered it perfectly. But if you go out there and take the fact that you were asked to do that show and respect that fact and feel the responsibility for doing it and give everything that you have, especially when you're just starting at those county shows, it will be noticed, it will be appreciated, and that there will be a positive connotation to you showing up as a judge. Do the things that we kind of talked about in this episode and other episodes. And I have a feeling that if you're interested enough to ask, how can I get to that next level? You're passionate about this and you want to do it. So you're going to take that with some responsibility. And by doing so, you will move on. It will continue. Be patient. Do as many of the shows that ask you to do them if you feel comfortable doing so, and it will continue to grow for you. Are you ready for the next one, Ryan?
Sure.
Janelle submits a question. We were at a goat show, and during a showmanship class, there was a junior gal really mad at her goat. She was rolling her eyes, tossing this goat around, and very frustrated with him. I didn't seem to think the goat was acting like a fool, but he wasn't fully cooperating. How would you place this girl? I believe she received third place, but my honest opinion, she should have been lower because her frustrations being shown on her face and her handling were evident.
Of course, I wasn't there, so I don't know this exact situation. I will go in showmanship and tell kids a lot of times, and because unless it's just some abnormal circumstance, I try to go, even in the kids that don't make the cut, make finals, place, whatever, tell them one thing they did well and one thing they need to improve on in showmanship. And a lot of times when an animal's not cooperating or working well, I'll say, you just had to work too hard at it. And what I mean by that is you had to fight that animal too much and it wasn't smooth and it wasn't effortless. And it was because that animal was uncooperative. And so that's why you're not going to make the cut or you're not going to get placed, stuff like that. Talking about goats and sheep, and this happens more on little kids more than anything else. And I think it's a fight for control more than anything, is they just get so wrapped up on that head. And it's like they've got a death grip on it, and then the sheep or the goat starting to choke, and, things go wrong. And so I do talk to them a lot of times when I see that, you just got to back off that one's head just a little bit. You can still have control without being wrapped around the goat and the sheep's neck. And so there is that. And then, I know she didn't ask this, but I also do want to say there are times in showmanship contests where there is an absolutely stellar showman. And you can tell they're great and they're great, everything about them, and their animal's not working. I am one of those people that I normally don't hold that against them a great deal if they can get it back around. Because I truly think the mark of a very phenomenally skilled showman is to take an animal that obviously is having a bad day and not wanting to be a show them and still get it stuck. So there's that.
I love that. And you run into that on occasion, Ryan, and I see it often. And I'm with you. If that person doesn't lose their cool, stays pretty calm and persistent and can get that one to come around and probably do better than what I would even anticipate, I'm not holding it against them. I really am not. Now, there's some cases where that pig is in the corner and there's no getting that pig out of the corner and you can't even evaluate that person's showmanship abilities, where you don't have a choice. They're not going to make it. And it happens, unfortunately. But no, I think that's good. And Janelle not being at the show, it's really tough to say whether she belonged third or fifth or where at. But I think all judges are going to discount when a person is showing frustration and maybe more physical on an animal than they should be. There's no question that judges are going to discount for that. So I assume that was taken into consideration. I don't know. I wasn't there, but good question. The next one, Ryan, I did not filter this question, and maybe I should have, but we're going to throw it out there. Jay submits a question. In my opinion, in the swine industry, these pig placers are ruining our industry. On one hand, they are overcharging families and taking advantage of them. Going to breeders' farms and having them show you their best pigs that they've already sorted for these placers is definitely not enough to post about on social media and try to take credit for the win. These people are crooks. On the other hand, it is teaching kids that their parents can just pay money for them to win. And if these jocks are doing most of the work, the kids aren't learning near as much as they would if they were doing it on their own. Obviously, life isn't fair, but there are a lot of kids at disadvantage whose parents can afford to pay these jocks who are in with all the judges and help ensure their wins or trade off picking each other's pigs when they judge. Stop bragging about wins when you didn't breed or show the animal. Would love to hear your guys' opinion. So I read that as is. It didn't. Some of that does not make sense to me, Ryan. But I think we kind of get the general concept, and I can see some good and bad with it. And I'm going to let you dive in.
I think this was not a good question, but
no, but we're proving that we're not filtering these questions, Ryan. We have to allow all of them on.
In some ways, I get a little bit of this person's sentiment that people are paying a lot of money for pigs from people that are connected and winning and whatever, and maybe the kids aren't doing as much of the work. Okay, that's life. I don't want to sound, but that's life.
And that broker's not forcing anybody to pay for that.
No one is holding a gun to these people's head and saying, come spend $15,000 with me. And no one is saying, your kid can't brush that pig away. That is life, people. It is not fair. It is not easy. And people are going to have advantages people have advantages over me in everyday life. I have advantages over other people. That's just is what it is. I take some issues about the fact that he said, don't claim winning when you didn't breed it or you didn't show it. Well, I've bred animals that have won national shows. I've also brokered a lot more animals that have won national shows, and I was involved in the process of that animal every day. Whether it was a text, picture, going to check on it, I was involved in that animal's success every single day since they bought it from me. So I think that part is wrong. I think if whether you bred an animal or you brokered an animal and you continue to be involved in that program with that family and that animal and they're a success, you deserve to relish in it. You worked hard for it. They did too. So that, I think he's way off on that. I'm going to be real honest. I get what he is saying about the politics part of it. We've talked about this. And the only way to break that cycle is just like this episode, the politics episode, is we all have to want to do better. It's not only the people sorting that get asked to sort shows. When they go out there, they've got to go above and beyond to not be politically motivated in their decisions out there in the ring. The people that are picking these people to judge shows, whether it's a board at a county fair or a breed association or an individual person who does it, they have to research more. They have to talk to new people. They have to get more opinions. All of those things. Everyone has to do better to break that cycle. It's not on just one person shoulders or one part of the industry's shoulders. We all have to do better. And also, the families in this industry have to step up and be more vocal to the people that matter about who should and who should not. I don't want you bashing somebody on social media. I don't. But I want you going to whoever is in charge at the county fair, the state fair, major show, junior national, specialty show, and say, hey, these are the people that you need to be using, and these are the people you need to avoid. And they're going to listen to you as exhibitors way more than they're going to listen to me and Dale on a podcast.
Absolutely, Ryan. You answered that perfectly. And I'm gonna take it one step further, and it just a spinoff of this. Not only families do you need to go and voice your opinion, again, not on social media, not to everybody around you, but rather the people that are doing the hiring, the people that are in charge of those shows. But there's really good brokers out there in all species that do a phenomenal job of helping families and educating families. And there are some terrible ones out there. You're going to find this no matter what
that's everything.
Profession. Exactly. You're going to find it. I want to put the challenge out there to the parents of these exhibitors to do your best to find a broker, a breeder that's going to set a good example, and one that you would feel good about your kids growing up and being similar to, that they can look up to, because we have a very clear line out there right now of things that are unethical, of things that you would not want your child doing. I don't think any parent would, yet it seems as though as parents, we're willing to embrace this to get the win. It's not worth it, guys. But next question. Last question. More? 4 of them. Remember, we only did like one last week. Amy, it's a short one. Amy, how do you feel about long sleeve button-up shirt with sleeves rolled up a quarter of the way in July? This is at a county fair show. I'm assuming she's talking about an exhibitor.
Okay, I'm just going to put this out there, and again, this isn't going to be real popular. If you're going to wear long sleeves, wear long sleeves. If you think rolling it up, then just wear a short sleeve shirt. And again, other than showmanship, this is not going to matter to me when I'm placing your hog at the county fair. Whether you have on boots or a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt or whatever type of shirt. In showmanship, yeah, sometimes it's going to matter. But again, showmanship isn't nearly as long as the normal show, or it shouldn't be. Not so, but it shouldn't be. But I'm not going to count you off if you roll up the sleeves either. But my opinion is just wear a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt. Whatever.
So, Amy, as far as my opinion of it is, I prefer the look of a long sleeve shirt if I'm judging or if somebody's showing to me, but it isn't going to change my decision in showmanship, whether it's a short sleeve or a long sleeve, or if it's rolled up a little bit. I think Ryan's probably as strong as anybody, but at the same time, unless that is absolutely dead even heat, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
No, and even in showmanship, like I said, I don't know if I talked about this, but I think I did, but Illinois Hereford State Show, a young man that did a phenomenal job. I mean, absolutely phenomenal job showing his division in showmanship in a short sleeve shirt. Because if the only thing that I can come up with you did in wrong was a short sleeve shirt, you're going to win showmanship. Now, I also told him the next time he shows to me, he better be in a long sleeve shirt or he's going to have a little problem. But I bet if he ever shows to me again, he will be in a long sleeve shirt. I think whatever you want to do is fine. But I guess the one thing that I would say is whatever your options are is fine. I would go with long sleeve or short sleeve because I think the rolled up thing could look a little sloppy at times.
Excellent, Ryan. And with that, we're going to end on the question and answer. And just to reflect back on this episode and some of the other episodes that are maybe a little more controversial, I hope our listeners understand that Ryan and I are speaking what we believe to be the truth and giving you our honest opinions. I don't want some to take it personal I guess
you don't want some to take it personal.
No, I should re-say there are some that probably need to take it personal.
I was going to say there are some people that if they listen, they need to take this personally.
Yes, I guess I was saying I wanted to target more of those show committees and show managers because they have a tough job.
I ain't targeting them.
And sometimes we expect them to know everything that we know, and it's just that's not their life. They're not living that every day. It may be something they're volunteering for. So under those circumstances, just reach out and do the absolute best you can is all that we can ask.
Okay.
With that said, until next week, Ryan, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?